So we built a greenhouse just before Christmas, and well, obviously probably can see that it needs a bit of work. But I started trying to work out an analogy between growing plants and training and getting fitter, and it doesn't quite work, but it's there's certainly some things. So anyway, we're going to get back to the boring theme of training should be boring, routine and all that sort of thing. Well, getting back to the boring stuff. I know. It's not. I don't find it boring, but I mean, you might. But you get the point. It's about routine. Routine is fundamentally important. If you look at any elite or international competitor, then they have a really strict routine. They just do the important things and they cut out all the superfluous things from their life, so they don't have distractions, and the performance isn't compromised. The performance in training, the performance in recovery, sleep, all these other factors are routine. And when they get, obviously, the normal people, or relatively normal people, they have normal things. If they get knocked out of routine, then they have problems just like you or I would. So the detailed thing I was thinking of was that getting back to that book, The Complete Middle Distance Runner, and Frank Horwill. And he one year he posted, in a magazine, because we didn't have probably Athletics Weekly, we didn't have internet in those days, that the training that you should do to do well in the National Cross Country, which was a big race in Britain at that time, and it was really simple. He just said for 2 months you do 2 5-mile runs a day, and 2 sessions according to his 5-pace system, which I've described. And if you look at our blog, I wrote a blog on it which will give you a bit more detail. So you do 2 5-mile runs a day 2 5 miles runs a day 5 days a week, 1 5-mile run 1 day a week, which is your rest day, and 1 10-mile run, which is your long run. And then the next 2 months you do 6-mile runs, so 10 miles a day for 2 months, 12 miles a day for 2 months, and then 2 7s, 14 miles a day for 2 months. So that's like roughly 100 miles a week in the last part, and 70 miles a week in the first part, or 65 to 75 miles a week in the first part. So I mean, it's quite a lot of running, if you think at the elite level they're running it quite fast, so it doesn't take as long as it might take you or I to run it. But that was it, and that was what he was prescribing, and I'm sure that's the training that a lot of his athletes were doing, and they were having an incredible success by just doing 2 runs a day at an easy pace, 2 interval training sessions a week, one probably if they were racing cross country, which would be about like doing a 10k, would be like doing one 3,000 meter pace session, so like what would it be, like 6 by 2 minutes or 8 by 2 minutes, and one 5,000 meter session, which might be 16 by a minute, or 4 by 4 minutes or something, or 4 by a mile, or whatever that you might do. A mile's like 1,600 meters roughly, and that's all they did. And that's all in the good old days when people, I used to train with some very good runners, and that's all they did. They did a lot of training, a lot of mileage, which was at an easy pace for them, and they did some interval training sessions. The actual detail of the interval training sessions wasn't complicated, and it doesn't have to be. They were just making sure that they were stressing the system quite heavily when they did the interval training sessions, and they were not stressing it particularly heavily when they're doing the endurance training. And so they were getting their aerobic fitness and stimuli from the long volume, high volume zone 2 work, and they were getting their sort of anaerobic type, building up their FTP, their thresholds, their anaerobic thresholds from the interval training. And that was it, and that's what everybody who was running from 5k up to marathons was doing. And performances are only just, in Britain anyway, they're only just coming back to the standards that people were running at that time. So it doesn't have to be complicated. That's the sort of message that I'm trying to make. But then but the analogy with plants that I was thinking about is that a plant takes time to grow. You can't rush it, and this is something that I've said quite often to people that I work with, and also I find it quite a nice thought. You can't actually rush getting fit. You have to provide the right stimuli, and then you just have to wait for your body to adapt. And that's what plants do, isn't it? You put them in the ground, you give them certain nutrients. If you water them properly, they'll grow. And then if you look after them carefully, they might grow a bit faster. And if you look after them not at all, then they might die. So you have to look after it. You have to look after yourself, just like you would have to look after a plant by watering it. And if you feed it, it'll grow a bit faster maybe. Or if you give it the right amount of sunlight, if you put it in the sun as opposed to the shade, it might grow a bit faster. So you can do things to improve the way the plant grows. You can do things to improve the way that you grow, but you can't force it. If you start pulling it, it's not going to grow any faster. And then likewise, if you just force yourself to train harder and harder, all you're going to do is get tired. So what I was thinking is that so if you bring these two things together, this boring stuff and this plant stuff, is you just need to keep consistently training, consistently doing the right things, consistently watering yourself, giving yourself the right nutrients, sleeping properly and all these other things, and then let your fitness develop. Be confident in the knowledge that you can't force yourself to get fitter, but confident also in the knowledge that if you keep doing the right things, if you follow the process, then you'll get fitter and faster, and if you've sort of created realistic and sensible goals, stepping stones along the way, you're likely to get fit in time for your event. And that's it really. Be consistent, don't force it, and I'm sure you'll be successful. Bye.